a limitation. It is an opportunity. By expanding and trading more with each other, we create jobs, expand markets, strengthen industries, and build resilience across global shocks. At the heart of this opportunity are our young people. Across Kenya, Tanzania, and a wider region, millions of young men and women are entering the workforce each year with talent, ambition, and determination. What they seek is not charity, but opportunity. By deepening our integration, expanding trade, and investing in shared infrastructure, we are not only growing our economies, we are creating pathways to jobs, enterprise, and dignity for this generation of young people. In doing so, we are also addressing one of the most pressing challenges of our time, ensuring that the energy of our young people is harnessed for progress, stability, and shared prosperity. Ladies and gentlemen, members of parliament, for this to happen, we must move beyond narrow national calculations and embrace a mindset of partnership where each country's progress reinforces the other's success. It must be grounded in physical connectivity, shared infrastructure, and deliberate investment that bring our economies closer together in practical and measurable ways. That is why the project we are advancing together are so consequential. The development of the road corridor from Malindi through to Lungalunga to Dar es Salaam is not merely a transport upgrade. It is a strategic artery of commerce, tourism, and people exchange along our Indian Ocean coastline. Similarly, the planned expansion of railway connectivity from Voi through Singida and onward towards Burundi represents a transformative step towards linking our hinterland markets, unlocking trade routes into the Great Lakes region, and positioning East Africa as a gateway between the Indian Ocean and the heart of our African continent. Let me also mention the 400 kV Kenya-Tanzania power interconnector, spanning over 500 kilometers, has done more than connect two grids. It has synchronized our electricity systems, enabled power trade, improved reliability, and reduced vulnerability to supply shocks. And as we look ahead, the proposed Shinyanga, Mabuki, Kilgoris, Rongai interconnector will deepen this integration further. It will expand transmission capacity, strengthen the East African power pool, and allow us to optimize our diverse energy sources, Tanzania's gas, Kenya's geothermal and wind, and the region's broader renewable potential into a more reliable and competitive regional energy market. But infrastructure must also be owned in a way that creates confidence and shared responsibility. The recent decision by Uganda to acquire a stake in the Kenya Pipeline Company in Kenya is significant. In one act, it transformed its role from a user to a partner, turning the pipeline into a shared regional asset anchored in mutual benefit, energy security, and long-term confidence. In the same spirit, Kenya stands ready to invest as a strategic partner in the proposed oil refinery in Tanga. Asanteni. While I would have naturally, I would have preferred such a facility to be built in Mombasa, I fully recognize that Tanga is just less than 200 kilometers away, and in fact is part of the same economic space. Listen, wacha niwaeleze kidogo. Sisi ni partners wa East African Community. Na mawazo yangu ilikuwa ni kwamba we must use ile rasilimali tuko nayo hapa katika bara letu la East Africa. Lazima tusitumie kwa industrialization, ituzalishie nafasi za ajira, isuzalishie mali ama iongeze dhamana kwa yale mambo tulio nayo na itutafutie utajiri. Tayari nchi yetu jirani ya Uganda wamekwisha jenga pipeline, crude pipeline kutoka Hoima kule Uganda ikielekea Tanga. Itakuwa tayari kwa miezi chache zijazo. Wakati niliketi na Rais Museveni, nikamuuliza mzee, mbona tuchukue mafuta yetu tuende tuifanyie refinery sijui mahali gani, alafu tufuatilie tuende tununue mafuta ama oil products kwa bei ambayo ni ghali? Mbona sisi wenyewe tusijenge refinery hapa? Na Rais Museveni akanieleza kama nyinyi mko tayari, kwa sababu kama Uganda peke yetu ile refinery kuijenga itakuwa gharama ya juu na hatuna uwezo wa kujenga peke yetu. Kama Kenya na Tanzania wako tayari, tuungane, tunaweza kujenga ile refinery hapa kwetu. Mimi nikatumana technocrats wangu wakaenda wakakutana na Rais Museveni, tukakubaliana zile nambari, ikafanyiwa calculation, tukajua ya kwamba tukiungana nchi zetu tatu kujenga refinery hapa itakuwa ni jambo la muhimu, itatuletea ajira, sijui kama tunaelewana ba. Ndio sababu hiyo nikapendekeza ya kwamba tuwe na kongamano. Tukawa na kongamano hile kule Nairobi, tukawaita wale matajiri wetu wa bara letu la Afrika, kina Dangote na wengine ambao wameshajenga refinery wakati mmoja, na tukakubaliana ya kwamba nafasi tulio nayo is not to continue exporting raw materials from our continent and importing finished goods from elsewhere. Na ndio sababu hiyo tukapendekeza ya kwamba tukiungana Uganda, Tanzania na Kenya tunaweza kujenga refinery, ndio tuhakikishe ya kwamba ile mafuta tunairefine hapa kwetu, pesa inabaki hapa kwetu, nafasi za ajira inabaki hapa kwetu, tutengeneze bidhaa zingine ya fertilizer ama mbolea hapa kwetu, plastic industry iwe hapa kwetu, petrochemical industry iwe hapa kwetu, badala ya kuzitafuta kutoka nchi zingine, badala ya sisi kwenda kung'ang'ana kule sijui Strait of Hormuz kulete mafuta kutoka sijui wapi. Sasa nimesikia nyie mnamuuliza Mama Suluhu maswali magumu. Mbona yule bwana ameenda kutangaza refinery ya Tanga na kule, na sisi wenyewe hatujatangaza? Sasa nauliza nyinyi, ile refinery bwana is a big investment. Sikizeni, hiyo investment is in billions of dollars. Kama mimi ningekuwa na nafasi ningeipeleka kule Kenya, lakini kwa sababu ya kuamini ujirani na bara letu la Afrika na jumuiya ya East Africa, sisi ni wamoja, nikasema ikijengwa Tanga ni kama vile imejengwa Kenya. And why? And why are we building it in Tanga? It is because the crude pipeline is already heading to Tanga. Na mafuta pale tukimalizia itakuwa sehemu fupi sana kutoka Tanga mpaka Mombasa. Tupeleke mafuta alafu tuweke kwa ile pipeline ambayo tuko nayo tayari. It will make our Kenya pipeline commercially viable, better, and hatutakuwa tunasumbuka na sijui Hamus na wapi kutoka hapa Tanga mpaka Mombasa. Sikizeni bana, kawaida kupata mwegezaji ambaye analeta mabilioni lazima uwapigie magoti, uwaambie maneno mazuri, wapatie sijui incentives, sijui wapatie nini. Mimi nawasaidia kuleta investment Tanga. Kama mungekuwa watu wangwana, mungetulipa sisi wa Kenya, ningesema asante sana. Kwa hivyo let us work as East Africans. What is good for Tanzania is good for Kenya, and what is good for Kenya is good for Tanzania. Tafadhali na wasihi, nikiwa rais wa pili, kwa mapenzi ya Mungu na kwa heshima yenu, kuhutubia bunge hili la watu, the great people of Tanzania, I want to ask you, sisi ni wamoja bwana. We are one people. Tusikubali kasumba ya samani. Sijui Wakenya ni maadui wa hawa, sijui wa Tanzania. Hapana, we are one people. We have a common destiny. Nimewaeleza Wakenya sio maadui wa Tanzania. Watanzania sio maadui wa Kenya. Maadui wetu sote ni pale ambapo hatuna mali, hatuna nafasi za ajira, hatuna fedha. That is what we must struggle against. Na nataka niwaeleze, kuna semekana na huko kwetu kwamba mali unaweza kuwazima ama kugawa, lakini umaskini haugawanyiki bana. Yeah, let me put it in English. This said, you can share wealth, but you cannot share poverty. What matters is not whether the asset is in one side of the border or the other. What matters is whether it strengthens our shared prosperity. That is the model we must pursue. That is the model we must pursue. Shared corridors, shared energy systems, shared ownership, shared responsibility, and shared benefit. But infrastructure alone is not enough. Integration, must also be supported by strong, credible, and effective institutions. That is why the decision taken at the 25th Ordinary Summit of the East African Community in Arusha were both timely and necessary. I have been to many meetings of EAC, but the one we had last was the most consequential in my estimation. First, we appointed Ambassador Stephen Patrick Mbundi, a Tanzanian national, as Secretary General. As he assumed office on 25th April 2026, Kenya reaffirms its full support for Mr. Mbundi. Second, we adopted a new financing model, 50% equal contribution and 50% assessed contribution, effective 1st July 2026. We also agreed to waive 50% of outstanding arrears on condition the balance is cleared within 2 years. Third, we agreed that quorum for all EAC organs shall be 2/3 of partner states, streamlining decision-making and making our union more effective. Fourth, all partner states must eliminate non-tariff barriers by 30th June 2026 without exception. And that is why my sister, President Samia Suluhu Hassan, and I yesterday instructed our officials, some of them in this room, that all the outstanding non-tariff barriers between Kenya and Tanzania, and there are about 20-something, we've told them by the end of this month, they must meet and clear all non-tariff barriers. We want to streamline. And ladies and gentlemen, honorable members, I must commend the leadership, the outstanding leadership of President Samia Suluhu on this matter. Asante sana. Unajua pale 2024 biashara yetu ilikuwa imefika $950 million. Lakini mwaka wa 2025 ilirudi nyuma to 860. We lost almost $100 million of business between Tanzania and Kenya. Kwa sababu tuko na watu wajeuri na kiburi mingi pale kwa boda. Wewe Tanzania unaenda wapi? Wewe Mkenya unaenda wapi? Yes, you. Watu bure sana. Wametuharibia biashara. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to run into the trouble of using unparliamentary language. Lakini hawa watu ambao wanaharibu biashara yetu pale, weka hii. Tumeambiwa mawaziri wetu wafanye kutano, tuondoe biashara, itusaidie kuunganisha watu wetu, kuhakikisha ya kwamba biashara inaendelea mbele, tuzalishe mali, tuzalishe ajira, tuondoe umaskini. Honorable members, implementation now is key. It requires a whole of government approach with Parliament at the center. Kenya has already moved, and a multi-agency technical team is in place to prepare the necessary legal and financial instruments. These decisions will unlock the full potential of the East African community as a pillar of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. This is the agenda before us, and we must pursue it firmly, fully, and without hesitation. These are not minor administrative adjustments. They are structural reforms designed to ensure that East African community is not only aspirational, but functional and capable of delivering tangible outcomes for the East African people. Because without strong institutions, even the most ambitious integration agenda will struggle to succeed. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the true test of integration lies in trade. The East African community must function as a dynamic economic bloc, one that expands opportunity, strengthens competitiveness, and delivers prosperity. Today, intra-East African trade remains below its potential, yet the opportunity is immense. Even modest increases would unlock billions in commerce, create jobs, and expand industries, empowering small businesses and retain more value within our economies. The latest quarterly statistic bulletin from the East African Community Secretariat underscores both our progress and our unfinished tasks. Total East African trade grew from $124.9 billion in 2024 to $157.6 billion in 2025, an increase of 25%. Within that, intra-East African trade rose by 28%, from $15.1 billion to $19.3 billion. Yet, despite this growth, it still accounts for a fraction of our total trade. Clear evidence that while momentum is building, the full potential of our regional markets remain largely untapped. That gives us a better footing in the region and as part of a broader continental framework, including COMESA and, most importantly and significantly, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. The ACFTA, as it's called, is a historic opportunity to create a single market of over 1.5 billion people, with the potential to increase intra-African trade by more than 80%, lift millions out of poverty, and expand opportunity for millions of young Africans whose talent and ambition must find expression in constraint but in growth, not in constraint but in growth, enterprise, and shared prosperity. The East African community must position itself as a strong pillar within this continental architecture, leveraging our integration to expand trade across Africa and beyond. We have seen this model succeed elsewhere. The European Union, for example, has demonstrated how regional integration can create scale, enhance competitiveness, and strengthen global influence. We can and must do the same in a way that reflects our realities, our priorities, and our aspirations as East Africans. Honorable members, a continent that remains divided by hesitation and mistrust cannot act with coherence and strength. It cannot coordinate effectively, and it cannot fully realize its potential. The reform of the African Union is not optional, it is an imperative. We must build an institution that is leaner, more focused, more effective, and decisively results-oriented, one that speaks with a single coherent voice on global issues, aligns its organs with priorities of its member states, and above all, translates decisions into tangible outcomes. This is, again, not merely an administrative exercise. It is a strategic necessity. A stronger African Union is an engine of a stronger Africa, and reform is the bridge between aspiration and achievement. Without it, the promise of Agenda 2063 risks remaining unfulfilled. Central to this renewal is financial independence. For far too long, a significant share of the Union's program has depended on external financing, undermining ownership, constraining strategic autonomy, and limiting our capacity to act with speed and certainty. Africa must fund its own priorities, set its own agenda, and engage the world from a position of confidence and self-determination. Unity and ownership are not abstract ideals. They are the foundations of our collective strength. At the same time, the call for reform must extend beyond our continent to every architecture of global governance. Reform is no longer a matter of preference. It is a matter of justice. A system that marginalizes Africa cannot claim legitimacy. Let me repeat that. I have said, and I want to say this with clarity, a system that marginalizes Africa cannot claim legitimacy. And a global order that excludes a continent of 1.5 billion people is inherently incomplete. Nowhere is this more evident than in the United Nations Security Council. A council that excludes Africa cannot effectively secure Africa. And without Africa, there can no longer be global security. Representation, therefore, is not symbolic. It is essential to building a stable and credible international system. Equally urgent is the reform of the international financial architecture. Today's system reflects a different era and does not adequately respond to Africa's realities. The cost of capital remains